On January 12, 1952, Corporal Ronald E. Rosser huddled with the battered remnants of his company on a snow-covered hillside in Korea. The badly outnumbered Americans had been ordered to take a hill, heavily fortified by Chinese soldiers. Now, 100 yards from the summit, only 35 of 170 men remained in the fight. Taking machine gun fire at nearly point-blank range, Rosser radioed his regimental commander, who demanded to speak to an officer. Rosser dragged the radio to his wounded company commander, who was ordered to make one final attempt to reach their objective. Seeing the hopeless expression on his commanding officer's face as he gazed toward the summit, Rosser offered to lead the assault. Rallying the remaining men, Corporal Rosser told them to stay close, then took off, charging the enemy position. Nearing the enemy lines, Rosser looked back to find himself alone. Men were laying scattered on the hillside where they had been hit. Others had run for cover. For a moment, his thoughts drifted to his younger brother, Richard, who had been killed fighting in Korea 11 months before. Ron took the news hard and left his job in the coal mines of eastern Ohio to rejoin the Army, where he'd served just after World War II. He wanted to finish his brother's tour. He was also motivated by a more basic instinct. He wanted revenge. Under heavy fire, Corporal Rosser took out an enemy bunker before racing to the top of the hill and clearing a trench. Out of ammunition, he returned down the hill, resupplying himself from his fallen comrades. 3 times he attacked the enemy position, alone. By now he had been shot twice, once in the shoulder and once in the hand. Still, he led the withdrawal from the hillside, carrying several of his wounded comrades to safety. Almost immediately, the surviving men began telling stories among themselves of the extraordinary valor they had witnessed on that hillside. Corporal Rosser's commanding officers insisted that he be considered for the Medal of Honor. At the time, the recognition meant little to Rosser, still holding on to the anger over the loss of his brother, still bent on exacting revenge. Despite his consideration for the Medal of Honor, he demanded he remain on front lines with his men. 3 months later, Rosser's regiment was ordered off the front lines. Now in reserve, he saw up close the people of Korea, the people they were fighting for. For 2 years, the people of Korea had suffered through war, their children starved for food. The anger that had fueled him began to fade. He began to see he was fighting for much more than personal revenge. That June, at a ceremony at the White House, President Truman awarded Ronald Rosser the Medal of Honor for his valor on a Korean hillside 6 months earlier. On September 20th, 1966, Marine PFC Gary E. Rosser, brother of Ron and Richard Rosser, was killed in Vietnam. Still on duty, Sergeant First Class Ronald Rosser requested combat duty on the front lines, ready to finish his brother's tour. The Army denied his request, unwilling to risk a Medal of Honor recipient, unwilling to risk a third brother. Shortly after, he retired from the Army, the culmination of a career that witnessed the greatest acclaim a soldier can receive and the greatest sacrifice a family can suffer.